I think a good foundation for any knowledge of Pro Tools starts right here with the edit modes. Because Pro Tools is a very powerful audio editor, but if you don't understand these 4 buttons here, then you're going to be completely lost or very inefficient using Pro Tools. These edit modes determine how your editing tools and how your moving of audio clips around your tracks area is handled. So you have 4 different edit modes. You have slip, shuffle, spot, and grid. Now grid has a little drop down arrow here, which anytime you see that, that means there's a variation. So I'm going to click that drop down arrow and you'll see when it's blue like this, you're in something called absolute grid. And when you click this, it turns kind of a little purplish or lavender color. And now you're in relative grid. I'm going to go back to absolute grid. So basically you have 5 edit modes. Well, 4 and 1 with a variation. Some people say 5. Let's discuss all 5 of these edit modes, starting with slip. In slip mode, if I have a clip here, I can move this clip freely and drop it anywhere I want to. It just slips and slides around the track. I can drop it anywhere, right? And you'll notice up here in the counters, if you click and select a clip, it will actually show you where it ends and where it starts. And so as you see, when I move this, you'll see that updating in real time. And so the only thing that is constraining you in slip mode is how far you're zoomed in and zoomed out. The further you are zoomed out, the less detailed you can be about where you drop this particular clip. The more you zoom in, the more definitive or the more defined you can be as to where you actually drop and start your clip in slip mode. Let me put it back here to bar 1. In spot mode, if I click on the clip, a dialog comes up. Let me cancel that. If I click and try to drag a clip, spot dialog comes up. Let me cancel that. If I try to edit a clip, the spot dialog comes up. So no matter what you do, if you're in spot mode, this dialog will come up. And when you see this dialog, you basically have to tell Pro Tools exactly where you want that clip to go. In your spot dialog menu, you have a time scale. You can move it based on bars and beats, minutes and seconds, time code, feet and frame, or samples. Basically any of these rulers that you see up here at the top. So let's keep it musical. Let's say I want to move the beginning of this clip to bar 8. So the start here, the first number is bar, the next number is beat, and the last number is ticks. So I'm going to tell it to start at bar 8. Type a 8 here. Say OK, and the clip moves from bar 1, and now it is starting at bar 8. And I can identify that up here in my ruler, starting at bar 8. If I click on it again, I can tell it to, let's say, for instance, end at bar 8. So I'm going to go here, 8. And now it ends at bar 8. It started at a different bar just so it could end at bar 8. Now, there are some other options that are in the spot dialog menu, but that's a little more advanced for a beginner's course. Sync point, I can kind of tell you, let's say for instance, if you wanted to spot the middle of the clip to a specific location, you can drop a sync point in the middle or at any point in the clip other than the beginning or the end, and then tell the sync point to spot to that location, and it will align the point that you marked with the sync point to that location. Okay, so let's cancel that. Go back to slip mode for a second, and I'm going to put it back at the beginning here. Now let's look at grid mode. And we're going to look at absolute grid mode first. So in grid mode, moving or editing this clip will snap to a grid that you set over here in your grid values. So if I click this little drop down menu here, I can go in and I can set the resolution of my grid. So right now, my grid is in bars and beats. Your grid could also be in minutes and seconds, time code, feet and frames, samples, clips and markers. I'm going to keep it musical and very simple, and we're going to keep it in bars and beats. Now the resolution of my bars and beats grid is right now in quarter notes. And if you look, these lines here identify the actual grid that I'm talking about. The dark lines are bars and the lighter lines in the middle are my quarter notes. If I change it from quarter notes to, let's say, half notes, now instead of 4 lines, well, there was 3. But if you count the dark lines that represent the bars, it was 4 quarter notes. Now you just have half notes, right? And if I go here and make it a bar, then you only get the dark lines. Let's leave it on bar for right now. So now my grid is set to bars and beats and the resolution is set to bar. If I try to move this clip, it will only snap and land on those bars. I can only snap it to bars. I can't drop it in between there. No matter how hard I try, it's always going to snap to the bar. Even if I make a selection, and we'll talk about the edit tools I'm using to make these selections and things in a future tutorial, but if I make a selection, the selection is going to be perfectly snapped to the grid and it's going to snap a musical value of bars. If I make an edit to cut, I click here and I want to make an edit, which would be Command E on a Mac or Control E on a PC. I made a edit or a cut right on a bar. If I move this now, I have 2 clips that were separated exactly on a bar because my grid mode was in absolute grid mode. You move it back, undo that edit. Cool.